have this topic, calming the central nervous system, with Tricia Weiss, and she has a family business called Essential Thrive Tribe, which focuses on helping moms and their children calm their nervous systems. That's so important to empower, that we're going to hear tonight from her, how to empower moms and grandmas and caregivers with those tools. So we're excited. May specials, you'll see that tomorrow with the 125 PB, it is Cobaiba, a 5 mil, and then 10% off the soft gels. But they also have 2 other specials, which is exciting. 150 PB order, you'll get a 5 mil both Balance and Madagascar. And then the Father's Day special. So Costa Brio, Northern Escape, and Midnight Forest. And this isn't just for the men. If you love being outdoors, ladies, you can order 4 of these. Treat yourself or to anyone in your life. And it's a little clip-on, magnetic kind of clip-on card diffuser that comes with that as well. So what an amazing gift for the guys. And don't forget, there's still a little bit of the rose left for Mother's Day. You can get that ordered and have it here in time for Mother's Day. And I'm excited about the next couple classes as well. Next week, Julie's going to be speaking on natural solutions for chronic and acute pain. She comes to us with a number of years as a massage therapist. And then Alicia Hogstead, functional practitioner, how emotional stress impacts our digestive system. So mark your calendars for the next couple of weeks as well. We've got some fantastic speakers as well. And I want to share, there was a lot of talk last week. Where do we find the recording for Dr. Riggs? Well, we decided he stayed very compliant, as we would have expected, and you can find it in the permanent library. So take a picture of that, bit.ly/permanent library. DE stands for Discovery Essentials, and it is not going to be going away. It's out there. This is also a Silver Club promotion, so please reach out, all of you new people that are on. And if you enroll, you could reach out to them for a Silver Club promo code and get some free oils. So I'm excited to have you all with us, and I'm going to stop sharing and let me just get up here quick and turn this over to Tricia. Let me stop sharing here, Tricia.
Awesome. Thank you, Sandy.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you.
Let me just get this up and going. It's hard to talk and get it going at the same time. and then we'll be able to move on. Well, welcome. My name is Tricia, and this is my mom. Her name is Nancy, and she is a licensed professional counselor and has been for 37 years, which is the duration of my life. And I have been studying the central nervous system on a physical aspect over the last 5 years. And about a year ago, we came together and said, you know what, there's really a gap here with people talking too much about the physical side of the central nervous system or too much about the emotional side of the central nervous system. And so what if we combined our skill sets and worked to bring the whole thing to you? And so that's what we get to do tonight. And that's what we do on our page every single day. At Central Thrive Tribe, we run a coaching program for moms to help calm their own nervous system so that they can calm their kids' nervous systems as well. So we want to get started today, and I have a degree in vocal performance, actually, and so everything that I do is kind of centered around music and just the energetic parts of the body, and so the symphony, we're going to call this a symphony today. So the symphony of the body, we live our life through our central nervous system. It's made up of our brain and our spinal cord, and everything runs up and down that. It is our entire body's processing center. Okay, it controls awareness, it controls movement, it controls how you think, it controls your speech, it controls your senses, and largely the central nervous system is impacted mentally, emotionally, and physically. And like I said, oftentimes we'll lean into one and not the other. And tonight we want to lean into all three. I think overall this could be like a 4-hour seminar, but we're going to give you a high level overview of those three things. So we have the mental part, which is the stimulus receptor. I need to move this actually because I cannot see my screen. And so that's the input from the environment. Okay. So just mental is, this is my life and we're living it. And we get input all the time from everywhere, from all sorts of places. Okay. So the environment is our sensory receptors. Then there's the emotional aspect, which is how we process the stimulus reception. So information processing is our emotional. So we're constantly analyzing that incoming information, and then we're sending a signal from the hypothalamus through the pituitary, through the adrenals, which I'm going to show you in just a second. And then the physical is the response generation. And if you've ever lived life, but had like a panic attack specifically, you understand that input comes in, then it creates an emotional awareness, and then your body responds physically to the input. So signals are transmitted through the nervous system to execute what the body believes is an appropriate response. So in preparation for this, I actually asked on our social media page, we said, you know what, we're doing a class on the central nervous system, and we want to know how many of you would say, I'm in the thick of it. And we have a large following, and so this was a lot of people who engaged on this, and 86% of people said, I'm in the thick of it. And I'm wondering, you can use the chat if you want to. If you feel in the thick of it, put a 1, and if you don't, put a 2. And what I think, what we were talking about with this poll is that we have a walking society of people who feel really overwhelmed and burnt out. And if we could learn to cope, we could really help ourselves out quite a bit. So then I went a little bit further, and I asked another question, and I said, do you feel like you have a lot on your plate? And even more people responded. 93% said they have a lot on their plate, a walking society of this. And we really grieve over that, because I think that if we had the coping mechanisms that we need, this wouldn't be the case. And so the question is, what do we do? And it is imperative to our health that we learn to process the input, to learn to cope with it, and to support our bodies well.
And it doesn't mean you're not going to have a lot on your plate. It just means you're going to handle it all a little bit more effectively.
Yes. So we want to come back to the mental for a minute. Remember, everything tonight that we're talking about is mental, emotional, physical. So with my music background, we have the mental melody. These are all of the glands in the top half of your body. We're just focused on the hypothalamus and the pituitary. And I think what's interesting is just a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Caitlin, she focused a ton on the hypothalamus as well. So you can tell how important that particular gland is in helping the rest of the body. So we're going to focus on the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and then the adrenals that you can see are here. And the adrenals release the hormones of cortisol and adrenaline and essentially control our stress. And so one of the things that's like kind of a buzz hip word right now on social media is cortisol burnout or adrenal fatigue. And so hopefully tonight you leave with an understanding of why that exists. So in short, when you're in fight or flight, the hypothalamus releases a hormone, CRH, to respond to the stress, okay? That stimulates the pituitary gland, which is also here, and releases another hormone called ACTH. That hormone sends a signal to the adrenal glands, hey, release some adrenaline, release some cortisol, prepare for the body for stress. And so essentially that input from the hypothalamus translate to the adrenals as, are we being chased by a lion or are we not being chased by a lion? Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about the difference between adrenaline and cortisol. With adrenaline, if that is what it's signaled, that is like the house is on fire, or the baby's crying in the middle of the night and I gotta go get her, or just an instant, quick, you don't think about it. The body, the input is let's go and we got to go fast. And adrenaline doesn't last a super long time. It comes down. Versus cortisol is a prolonged stress hormone that is released. And so, as a personal example, I have 4 kids who are all very active in sports and music. And so, collectively, we have 25 hours of extracurricular activities right now. I need cortisol to get through all of those extracurricular activities, and I need my mom to be a driver, which is why we live together. We don't live together, but we lived up the street from each other. So that's cortisol. So the problem becomes, okay, don't miss this, that prolonged cortisol production causes inflammation. And inflammation is really the root of all of our chronic illnesses. And so that's why this is such a big deal. And that's why we are so passionate about talking about this area, because we've got to be able to manage the cortisol in order to manage the inflammation. And so we just pedal back up the stream. In order to manage the cortisol, we got to manage the adrenal glands. In order to do that, we've got to manage the pituitary. And in order to do that, we have to manage the hypothalamus. And that part enters in the emotional aspect of the central nervous system. And I'm going to pass it over to Mom.
We've got a little visitor.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to talk about the emotional aspect of de-stressing. And obviously emotions are, the things that we talk about all the time: grief, sadness, being overwhelmed, being mad. There's a whole page of emotions. There's like 25 different emotions that you can look at. And those emotions oftentimes are a response to something that's going on in our life, either physically or mentally. And so what I really want to talk about are things that you can do in your mind and in your body that will help you with your emotions. So I'm not really going to talk about just the basic emotions that I just mentioned, that long list of emotions that you can all feel, just disruption and fear and all that stuff. I really want to talk about what to do to how to cope with those things. And so first I want to talk about the mind. The mind, I want to talk about 3 things. I'm going to turn this since she's got somebody she's working on. The first one I want to talk about is reframing your perspective. So when you have some kind of a stimulus come at you and it's a difficult situation in your life or whatever, one of the things that you can do that can really be helpful is if you reframe your perspective. So we all have in our arsenal of things that we do, we have things that are called cognitive distortions. And cognitive distortions are, for instance, one example is all or nothing thinking. When you really think that it either is all something bad or nothing something good. And there's like 10 or 12, you can probably Google them, cognitive distortions. And you don't even know that you're doing it most of the time. When in the years that I've been doing therapy, I can point out to people their cognitive distortions and they didn't even know they were distorting that. Cognitive just means thinking. So they're thinking distortions. One of the ways that you help yourself reframe your perspective is by recognizing the cognitive distortions that are in your life, like all or nothing thinking. And there's a lot of ways to kind of reframe it, and we do this sometimes. Optimists particularly do this naturally, where they'll say, well, this isn't, there are worse things. And so basically you're telling yourself, this is a difficult thing that I'm going through, but it would be worse if. Pessimists don't tend to do that as often. So if you tend to be a pessimist, you will find that you have a harder time getting out from under your cognitive distortions because your mind naturally goes to the negative. So the second thing I want to talk about is offloading. When you get overwhelmed with stimuli or information or stress or things in your life that have to be solved and you're not sure that you know how to solve it, or you have to go do the research to find out or whatever, it's really important that you figure out how to offload. And there's a lot of little buzzwords that I can use, like, for instance, don't borrow tomorrow's trouble. Now, you might think that that's just a cliche, but it's actually really important. If you stay in the now and solve and figure out what you need to do today and not spend a lot of your emotional energy and your brain space figuring out what you have to do for tomorrow or for a week from now or a month from now, that will help you focus on succeeding in whatever it is that you have to do in the situation that you're in for today. Another one would be take one step at a time. That's another way to say the same thing. Don't, like I've talked to people and they want to start a business, for example, and they get completely overwhelmed by the idea that, there's 69 steps on how to get to that, to get to the business open. Well, you might want to write that down because I think lists can be helpful, but you're only working on step 1 or step 1 and 2 or whatever. You can't even go to there because, and then the other thing about that I think is really important to understand is that a lot of times when we're in crisis or a situation that's stressful, we don't have all the information. So you can't make the decisions that you think that you need to make necessarily until you have that information. And I've told a lot of clients, they'll tell me about their situation and how overwhelming it is. And then one of the conclusions we come to is that they really don't have enough information, so they can't make the decision yet. So that decision isn't for today. So you can write it down and say, I have to make a decision about this, but that decision is for next week or next month or whatever. A lot of people do a spiral in their mind, and the spiral has a lot to do with what ifs. That's not going to help you for today. Like you can think about, well, in August I've got to do XYZ, and so today I'm all stressed out about that. That's not going to help you today because you can't deal with August, and also you don't have the information that you need at this point to deal with August. So it's really important to, and I think that's one of the reasons I like lists, is because it can tell me, I can make a list for the things I have to do today, and I can make a list for the things that are in the future. It offloads it off my brain, but I know I don't have to deal with it yet. You can even do a front and a back so that you're not looking at the list of stuff that you really can't do yet. Another thing that we tend to do is we tend to catastrophize. So especially when it's thrown at you when you're not prepared for it, you can make it, a catastrophic situation when in fact it's probably not. I mean, like 90% of the things that we worry about don't actually happen, or they don't happen as badly as we think they're going to happen. A lot of times things actually just work themselves out. And so you have to put your brain space towards working the things out that you have to work out, and not worry so much about the things that will come along later. And then the third thing is talking and processing. This is why people go to therapy, because they want a blank screen, someone to talk to about these things who don't necessarily have a stake in the game, and have some wisdom behind them. And what we do in therapy most of the time is help people understand, like quantify. I'll say to people frequently, so what I'm hearing is that you have 3 choices. You can do this, you can do this, or you can choose to do nothing. And that is a choice. It might not be the best choice, but you can choose that. And sometimes that frees people to feel like, okay, well, that's good to know. And you're still in control of the choices. If you don't go to therapy, you can also find a friend to do this, but what you want your friend to do is not tell you what to do. That's really important. What you really want is for your friend to help you process and ask questions about whatever it is that you have just told them. And that kind of a person can be really helpful. If you complain all the time to a friend and they just feel bad for you and they tell you that you're right, your husband's an idiot and your son is driving you nuts, and if they just tell you all those kinds of things, that's not really moving you forward. I mean, sometimes it feels good to vent. There's nothing wrong with venting, but you don't want to stay there. You want to propel yourself forward, and so you need someone to help you think through, how is this stuff going to affect me?
So we have a tangible example for you of a spiral, the dance of the immediate response. So this is a tangible example from Monday. And in the same day, my daughter sprained or fractured her ankle. We don't know yet. And my son's front permanent tooth got knocked out with a baseball. And so, as you can imagine, that was a lot of input from my hypothalamus right away. And that external stimulus was ultimately like the kids are homesick now for a couple of days, and I need to be their nurse and mend them. And I have a full-time job doing this. And so the reception becomes step number 2. And you can do this in your own life. I'd love for you to even do this with us. Like, okay, what's going on in my brain right now emotionally? So my reception is I'm unsafe because I'm not in control of my schedule and I feel out of control in my work. Okay. Then the processing becomes if I don't work today, if I don't work for 2 days, I'm not going to get these projects done. And that's going to ultimately impact my income. And I'm the breadwinner for my family. And so that's scary, right? Income is scary. So then the response execution is the muscles or the organs. So immediately my stomach started to hurt. The first day I lost my appetite. And then the second day I just totally binge ate, which we'll talk about in a second. And my pulse increased. So the response generation is, oh, I need to take massive action to have more control over my life. So you can see in a matter of 60 seconds, I went from my kids are homesick because we had this accident, which is unfortunate too. Oh my gosh, I'm out of control and I need to take more control over my life. Right. And so I'm saying this to her because that's what I do. And what did you say?
Well, one of the things that I just always notice when I'm working with somebody who's in crisis is they're just like, did you see how her voice the inflection of her voice just went up to here? Yeah. So one of the things that you want to just do is be a really calming presence. Like if you're the friend that's talking to somebody, and bring it down with even with your voice tone, and just try to create calm. And then, you ask some of the logistical questions like, who is with Luke with his tooth that's out of his mouth? She was able to get a hold of the dentist. The dentist was able to put it back in. It'll probably die, but at least the ligaments will grab onto the tooth. So it's not the end of the world. It's a real bummer. And he'll, spend money the rest of his life trying to keep that tooth looking good. But there are way worse things, right? And so these are the kinds of things that I'll say to her. Bring yourself down and calm, and then process through. Carly has a dance recital in 10 days. So a sprained ankle is a real bummer for a dancer who's supposed to perform in 10 days. Well, she'll probably be fine. In other sports, people go back and are able to tape their ankle and perform. And so 10 days is probably enough time. She'll probably be okay. So those are the kinds of things that you want to bring it down. But sometimes you actually have to do the opposite, just briefly, and you have to be able to ask the question, what's the worst thing that could happen in this situation? Okay, the worst thing for Luke's tooth would be that the dentist wasn't available and she couldn't find anybody to put it back in his mouth, and it started, clotting and whatever it does up there. Okay, well, that's a bummer, but people do wear retainers and they have, teeth
Implants.
or implants or whatever that come out. So he's going to live his life. It's going to be normal. He's not going to be without a front tooth for the rest of his life. And then with Carly, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, the worst thing that could happen would be that she wouldn't be able to perform, and that would be a real bummer, and she would really cry about that, and it would be sad because she only does 2 recitals a year. But again, we're resilient and things happen, and you're alive and you're going to walk again, and it's not the end of the world. And so that's one of the things that you have to try to do. So the most important thing, she asked me earlier, what do you think the most important thing is that you're even talking about today? And I said, well, I think the most important thing is self-talk. A lot of people aren't good at self-talk. They don't realize that they're even talking to themselves, and they don't realize that they're giving themselves bad input. So one of the things that you have to be able to do within your own mind is calm yourself and bring yourself down and be able to talk yourself through. I remember I was raised in Los Angeles, and I was driving back from a friend's house, and the traffic was hideous, which it always is out there, but I wasn't used to it anymore because I don't get on freeways and drive in terrible traffic anymore. And I was on a 12-lane freeway, so there's 6 lanes on this side and 6 lanes on this side. And I started having an actual panic attack about being on this, which kind of made me laugh at myself because I'm like, you grew up in this, you can drive in this. This is not that big of a deal. See, that was my self-talk already going on. But I had to say to myself, okay, wait, you know where you are. You know that this is going to end, even if you have to sit in it for another 30 minutes. You can handle this. You have done this before. See, those are all the kinds of things that you have to say to yourself in the self-talk portion of yourself to be able to get yourself through it so that you can have like the brain space to work through whatever it was. So there was a part of me that was like, okay, in 2 miles, I know there's a gas station there. If I need to, I can get off. In 4 miles, I can get off and take back roads back to my mother's house. So there was just all these things going through my mind of how I can get myself to come down from this fear that I all of a sudden had in the midst of this, 12 lanes and 6,000 people on the road kind of a thing. So the other thing, so I talked to you a little bit about the mind control of emotions. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the body. So the body there's 4 things that you need to do. Eating and sleeping are really basic things, but we find that sometimes we don't do those things when we're really stressed out. And if you can eat, good protein, if you can pay attention to eating things that are going to fuel your body, that's going to help you a whole lot more than if you're eating junk or you're grabbing stuff because you don't have time or whatever. And same with sleeping. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're going to be a little more foggy and you're not going to have that sharpness that you may need to get through the situations that you need to get through. And so those are 2 just really basic things that you can do to take care of yourself in a difficult situation. Another thing that you need to do is movement. If you go and exercise, you're going to produce, I can't remember.
Endorphins.
Okay, thank you. Your brain's better than mine. And those are going to help you calm down. And also when you're a little bit tired, you tend to not catastrophize things as much as you do when you're not. So if you can go burn some energy, that's going to actually help you to focus a little bit more. And then there are breathing exercises that you can do. And you can look these things up online. Tricia was saying, oh, I heard that it's, breathe in for 4 seconds and then hold your breath for 7 seconds and then let out for 6 seconds. I read the same, kind of idea, and it's breathe in for 4 and hold it for 4 and let out for 4. So I don't really care what the numbers are. The point is that you want to try to focus. You don't want to just breathe in. That's going to make you faint. You want to breathe in, and then holding it is I don't know, it's just a good thing to do.
Control
And then,
pause.
yeah, and then letting it out. The other things that you can do if you have time is things like getting into nature, reading the Bible and praying, listening to music that calms you down. And so those are all things that you can do, especially if like you get home and you're exhausted. Close your eyes and listen to some music that speaks to you and helps you to feel more calm. I mean, music is an incredible tool that we use in all kinds of situations it can be a motivator, it can be something that calms us down, it can be something that makes us really happy, it can be something that makes us really sad. So those are some of the physical things that I wanted to talk about. I want you to know that even if you are controlling yourself and you're feeling like you're controlling your emotions, and Tricia said this a little bit earlier, your body can react to things even if you think that you're okay. I had a situation a couple of years ago where I don't want to go all into it, but I was going to bed at night and I could feel my heart pounding really hard, and it was in my ears, and I could not fall asleep because it was pounding so hard. And I thought that I was handling this difficult situation pretty well. But as it turned out, my body was having a reaction to it that I couldn't control, like I could control my mind. I actually ended up finding out that you could just take a little aspirin and thin your blood a little bit, and that's got my heart so it wasn't in my ears anymore, and it got me to kind of calm down. So, that's something that you need to be aware of. Or I remember when my mom was in the hospital years ago, and I went out in the hallway because they were going to intubate her, and I all of a sudden was just freezing cold. And a nurse walked by and I said, I was sitting in a wheelchair because that was the only thing that was in the hall. And I said, can I get a blanket? I'm so cold. And I found out a little bit later on that's a form of a panic attack. It's just when your body just starts shivering. And the best thing you can do is get a couple blankets and wrap yourself in those blankets. So don't be afraid of your body's reaction, even when you think that you're controlling yourself in your mind, because it kind of has a mind of its own, for just, no pun intended.
I want to expand on these a little bit from a holistic perspective. When you talk about fueling and eating, an imbalance of vitamins and minerals is going to put an unnecessary amount of pressure on your glands. So if we're talking about the pituitary or the hypothalamus or the pineal gland that's here, or the adrenals that are there, that's like foundationally important. And I think what I love about the doTERRA space is that there are options for all of these things. And I'm going to share with you in a little bit a routine or a regimen that you could do if you were going to really focus on your central nervous system. But of course, fueling is kind of at the base of anything. Like if a fitness instructor got on here, like they're going to say that too. And so, we can't say that loudly enough, is to make sure that you have balanced. The second thing with sleeping is acupressure mats have been really proven to support relaxation, sleep, digestion, pain, and circulation. So if you're having a hard time falling asleep, there's a lot of power in applying something like the Serenity sleep stick to your feet and then laying on the acupressure mat, because again, we live our life through our central nervous system. So if you're gonna create circulation throughout your spine and your brain, and then also through your foot, if you've ever heard of foot reflexology, that's going to be an amazing symphony for your whole body to calm down and go to sleep. She was talking about some breathing techniques. My personal favorite, and what I've seen work best in our clients, is the pause breathing. And so you are specifically activating your parasympathetic nervous system. And so you're promoting calm and relaxation by encouraging the body to draw more air and dilute the airways. So I want to teach you how to do control pause breathing for a second. And if you would do this with me, I would love that. But you're going to take a deep breath, and then you hold for 4. But you're going to breathe out until your lungs feel empty. Once they feel empty, so keep breathing, plug your nose and count how many seconds you can do that. You will be struggling probably by about second 11, because you've already emptied out your airways. But what you're doing here is you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system by dilating your airways. And so you're drawing more air throughout your entire body. And that's going to be really great for calming and relaxation. This is going to overall slow your breathing rate. So, if you just did that successfully and really emptied out your lungs and then held your breath, you know that you were struggling by about 11 seconds. It's really hard to hold your breath when there's no more air in your lungs. Masters of control pause breathing who have activated their parasympathetic nervous system to like an optimal level can go 40 seconds. Isn't that crazy? I've been training my body and actually laying on my acupressure mat at night because I have recently been through quite a bit of trauma. And so I'm trying to reactivate my parasympathetic nervous system and allow my body to fall asleep. And it's not doing that well. These two things, number 2 and number 3, have made all the difference for my sleep. And as you are not able to process emotionally the input if you do not have sleep. So, and then number 4 is movement, and a recommendation that we have is to dry brush. If you're not familiar with dry brushing, again, you can Google that. You can go to Amazon and type in dry brush, and it's just a fine bristled brush that improves your lymphatic system. And so a lot of times we get kind of like, especially if we're dealing with a lot of cortisol, which means really high inflammation, our lymphatic system is going to get kind of clogged. And it has to be open because it's responsible for filtering. I mean, waste, toxins, it moves it. And so by encouraging lymph flow through the dry brushing, you're going to actually help your body flush out more toxins, which means you're going to feel less inflamed, which means you're actually going to feel less stressed. So these are some of my favorite things to do also in the categories of physical that she was talking about. One thing, and maybe you already know this, but if you can activate all 5 senses at once, your parasympathetic nervous system is so pleased with you. So if you're thinking about even like, prayer or meditation, if you could sit in a chair that's really comfy and you could set a diffuser of adaptive or Shinrin-yoku essential oils are our 2 favorites that we use in our home. And maybe you have some light music playing, and maybe you have some spa water. I love, love, love to combine lime and mint and drink it in fizzy water. And that's my spa water. But do you see what I'm doing here? Like, I'm creating this environment where I'm activating all 5 senses. Your parasympathetic nervous system will really thank you for that. So do that for yourself as you're struggling. One thing that was important to us is to give you just a sample schedule. So let's say that we were running a program for the central nervous system, which we haven't yet, but we probably could. And so it was like you were going to go all in on this. So all of us, many of us have, at some point in our life been on a diet. And when we're on a diet, we go all in, right? We know what times we're eating, we know what food we're eating, we know what the macros of the food are going to be. Like, so this would be an example of like, I, for the next 30 days, am all in on calming my central nervous system, mentally, emotionally, and physically. This is what we would have you do. So screenshot it, do whatever you need to do with this. But as an example, in the morning, when you rise, inhale essential oil and breathe. Practice breathing, practice controlled pause breathing. You could do this. My favorite oil to do this with is the one called Arise. That blend just makes my whole body happy. And then once you get up, you could dry brush. A lot of people work out in the morning. Obviously, if you work out after work, or go for a mid-afternoon walk, like just adjust this based on your own life. But this is an example. So you could dry brush using Balance essential oil. So you would drop the balance on your arm, and then you would be dry brushing that arm to stimulate that lymphatic system. And the balance is going to help with the inflammation too. I am a big proponent of drinking minerals prior to your coffee. And so if you can grab a sachet of recharge prior to drinking your coffee, we highly recommend that too as far as balancing. And then self-talk the plan for the day. If you can run through your plan and self-talk and tell yourself that it's going to be okay, you actually have a better chance of it being okay. All right. In the afternoon, we recommend, again, balancing those vitamins and minerals, making sure that we're filling our nutritional gaps. PB Restore is incredible for your body because it's rebuilding the gut microbiome. And the stronger your gut microbiome, the more your hormones, you have 50 hormones, by the way, the more that they are supported. And then Mino to Max, this is one that frequently people don't know about, but that is actually for adrenal support. So highly recommend taking that supplement as well. In the afternoon, you could potentially spend time offloading with a friend. If you can't do that, another option would be to record some voice memos for yourself. Honestly, we never go back and listen to them, but it is so helpful to record them. I promise you, just try it. Like, act like you're recording a message for a friend, even though there's nobody on the other side. Another idea in the afternoon would be to practice mind mapping to prevent the spiral. So earlier when we were talking specifically about how I was like spiraling about my kids and just their overall health and wellness and well-being and lives, and they're, I'm taking on their nervous systems too. And so therefore mine kind of spiraled out of control and was like, I can't take 2 days off work or that's going to impact income too much. What she told me to do in that time was, okay, let's get it out. Let's mind map what really happens. And she walked you through this. You either can take it to the end. What is the worst case scenario? Or you do all that self-talk of, I'm okay, this is all right, it could be worse. Like, we're gonna handle this, we're strong, we're capable, we're financially blessed. Like, it's all those types of things. So those are what you could mind map about. And when I say mind map, it's like putting a word in the middle. So, control, for example, and then like listing all the things that I wish I had control over that I don't. You also want to practice combating distortions that you've been thinking about. So even between morning and afternoon, if you can recognize the distortions that are in your brain and combat them, remember, you're going all in on your central nervous system here. Okay. So every day you have to practice helping it by combating the distortions that you're thinking about, and you will be shocked at how many thoughts we think that are distorted. It's sad. In the evening, so like before, when I say evening, I mean like nighttime, apply the Serenity Sleep Stick to the bottoms of your feet, lay on an acupressure mat for about 10 minutes. And as you're doing that, you want to close your eyes and envision the following day. What are you hoping for the day? What are you nervous about for the day? But do you see like how much we're incorporating the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, and the physical aspect into every section of our day? It's definitely hard work. And I always recommend the first week that you do something like this, make sure that you're getting extra sleep, like at least 9 hours, because you will be tired by the amount of brain work that you're having to do. We have concluded our presentation for today. And of course, our DMs on Instagram are always open. Feel free to message us specific questions. We love helping you step out of the spiral. Like, we're very, very passionate about that. We love helping your kids step out of the spiral and helping you help your kids step out of the spiral. So if you can, lean into this, calming your central nervous system, there's going to be a lot of really positive things that are impacted in your life. So I think we have probably have time for questions.
No, I'm going to finish. You can stop sharing.
Okay.
Then I will continue sharing my part, and then we will do the drawing, and then we'll stop the recording and then do Q&A. Because the benefit of staying on or coming to the live event or staying on is that they get their questions answered. So if you want, you can look in there while I am wrapping up.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, as we said, this is a Silver Club promotion. So those of you that are new, please reach out to whoever invited you tonight. And I'm often asked as well, and people are wondering, how do I get the recording? Really, 2 ways. The Discovery Central Facebook group is open to everyone on the call. You do not need to be part of Betty Torres's or the Discovery Central group. Please join that so you know what's going on across doTERRA. From top to bottom, pretty much, they post a lot. And then I don't want to even go out there and dig or wonder when it's coming. I joined the Discovery Central email list. I love to know, like this morning, 6:15, I got a reminder. I also like that they send me the recording in an email. It also gives me an opportunity to share that email with others as well. To check your progress toward graduation, please go to bit.ly/grad progress 2025 or scan the QR code there. Many of you probably have graduated or are graduating right now. And to complete the form for tonight, go to bit.ly/continuing ed 2025 and complete that as well. I would go to progress first and see where you're at, and then complete for tonight. And do that within the next hour. And then here's the Discovery Central's permanent library where Dr. Riggs' recording is. So take a picture of this for purposes of the bit.ly, or just scan the QR code and you will find his recording as well as many others that are outstanding that are out there. Those of you that are graduating tonight, please pick either 2 oils of your choice or a doTERRA teachable. And just think, we're not near even halfway near the middle of the year. So you could technically get this entire kit, which is $120. So continue to come to classes. Please stay till the end of the presentations we did. And most important, submit your questions now so that the 2 ladies will get those answered for you. 3 ways to purchase retail, wholesale, and below. Yes, below wholesale. And I'm going to go over that right now. And as I say each week, please check your inventory. And before you place your monthly order, especially this coming month when there's 2 free oils for 150 PV, check your inventory and you can purchase some of these kits, such as the Healthy Habits kit or others that are here, and get them discounted below wholesale. So these are always just, to me, a fantastic way. If you invited somebody tonight and they're ready to get started, in addition to the Silver Club, invite them to look at one of the kits after you discuss their needs as well. So just some more. And please give me a call, text me, call me, or email me if you have any questions. And we want to thank you so much for enjoying doTERRA's wonderful oils, a true gift of the earth. I'm going to stop the recording, and I am going to ask Tricia's mom to pick a number from 4 to 105, and we're going to have a winner, which is an adaptive touch. Do you want to unmute, Tricia?
Yep. What do you got?
How about 99?
Ooh.
All right. We're going to go way on the bottom and up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tanya Barclow Boone. So please text me. Kayla will put my phone number in there. Text me your name and your address, and we will get that shipped out to you as early as tomorrow. I'm going to stop the recording. We want to thank everyone for being on, and thanks, Tricia, before we stop the recording. Thanks so much, Tricia, and your mom.
Recording stopped.
All right.
Mom, can you hold on for a sec?
You bet.
Hi, the Google form is open. So.
And I love that they don't open it till now, because we want you to stay on the call and learn from the ladies, not pop on for 5 minutes and do your graduation kind of thing. So thank you so much all for being on. So go ahead. Did you get some questions there, Tricia?
Yeah, one of the questions that was asked was about trauma and rewiring and boundaries. So that there's a lot there. So I want to start with saying boundaries are really incredibly important. And if you didn't learn boundaries in your childhood, in your family of origin, you probably really struggle with the idea of boundaries, because you think that you're supposed to be there for everyone and take on everything. And I'll just give you a really small example that was really helpful. When I grew up with a dad who was really normal until he lost his job when I was about 10. And then my family got all kinds of dysfunctional. So like my brothers were on drugs, and my mother was working 80 hours a week because she was trying to, bring in the money. And my dad became an alcoholic, and it was just really a big mess. And we didn't learn boundaries, and my mom is a classic enabler of the alcoholic. She just figured out how to solve it, and he just became kind of irrelevant. And I was actually talking to my brother just today, and he was giving me woes about some of the situations in his life. And I said, well, we didn't grow up understanding boundaries and how important they are. And so anyway, my dad was really dysfunctional. And one of the things that he did to death was cuss. I mean, you meet people and it's every third word. And I'd rather you hit me than you cuss at me. That's just how I am, because of it was just really toxic. It was traumatic, I guess you would say. So I would call my dad more out of guilt than want. like every 6 weeks, I would just call him to check in. And finally, I realized one day I need to tell him that I don't want to listen to him cuss at me on the phone. And so I said very politely, because I was always very respectful and I really was very honoring. Like, I didn't want to write him out of my life. I mean, sometimes you need to write people out of your lives if it's really, really bad. But I wanted to try to, still be there for him in some levels. And I said, Dad, I'm glad that I call you and I'm glad that we talk, but I really can't stand you cussing at me. And he said, F you, and hung up the phone.
Good. Good. He
So-
enjoyed that boundary.
Yeah. So I waited 6 weeks, which was about the amount of time that I would wait to call him. And I called him back. And we didn't even talk about the fact that I had said what I had said and he had said what he had said, but there was not one cuss word in the next phone call. And when I got off the phone the first time, I remember thinking, I just was depressed and I was sad. And I just went back into that family of origin hopelessness. You're like, my family is so screwed up and it's never going to change. And I'm never going to have a real relationship with these people and blah, blah, blah. And when I get off the phone the second time and he didn't cuss at me, I got this huge smile on my face. And I'm like, okay, so even he is teachable. Now, he didn't ever acknowledge that he had been taught, but he really did change that. He's long since deceased. But I just remember because it was such a clear moment when I set a boundary that was really hard to set because in my family, that was just normal. But I had gotten old enough to where I was like, no, that's not normal. You can have a conversation without using those words. And so boundaries are really important. And the thing that you have to do when you function around boundaries is you have to figure out what is what boundary you need to set so that the environment is not toxic for you, as opposed to there are things that I believe that we have to do that we're obligated to do. But I think it's really important that you spend some time, maybe even on paper, figuring out what is an obligation that I really do feel compelled to do, either because I'm honoring my parents or I'm honoring somebody or whatever. We used to take our kids once every 3 weeks, maybe, to visit their great grandma. Yeah, it was their great grandma in the nursing home. And we did that because we thought it was good for them to have that experience. But we did it for her because we thought, she needed to be visited and she needed to see the children. They didn't like it very much, but it was something that we just decided that it was an obligation because we were willing to honor this woman. And we tried to make it as less painful as we could. Like maybe we'd go out for pizza afterwards and reward them or something like that.
Yeah. It was part of our value system.
Yeah.
Instead of just, okay, we don't want to do this, so we're going to set a boundary around it. It was like,
Yeah.
no, we are going to do this
Yeah.
because it's part of our values.
So that's part of setting up boundaries. I mean, we actually at some point are going to do a whole seminar on boundaries. So I'm trying to give you 5 minutes of something that could take 3 hours. When you've had a trauma, I don't know what the trauma is that they asked about, but one of the things that I've gone through when I've gone through something really hard, like that thing I was talking about a couple of years ago, I tried really hard to be good to myself. I didn't have as high of expectations of me getting as much done because I had this situation that was so challenging to my brain and to my body that I knew that I wasn't as productive. I tried really hard to get more sleep. I tried to make sure that I was eating well. I tried to keep my exercise going. But I was kind to myself. I would verbalize that there were things I was involved in this. I was on this board and they asked me to do a project that normally wouldn't be that big of a deal. And I wrote back to her and I said, I don't have the brain space to do that right now based on what I'm going through. And that kind of made her mad. And oh well, I knew that it was just so overwhelming to me to think about doing this research that she wanted me to do. I just knew I couldn't do it. And normally I would have been able to. So I just think part of it is that kindness, that sense of, this too will pass. My whole life isn't going to be wrapped up in this forever. And so I kind of set a boundary even for myself on just, not making myself do things that were new because I couldn't handle it at that moment. And so I hope that answers the question to whoever asked, but
You see that question on there, should we take recharge in the morning before or after collagen and PB assist?
Yeah, you want to take it right away. You want to take it right away if you can. You want to give your cells the energy. and they're going to get that from the minerals. And so, you know, a lot of people do like intermittent fasting, and minerals don't even count like against that. So you could take, you know, if you're doing that, you could take minerals at 7 and not eat till 11. So minerals, take the minerals first. Another question was the brand of acupressure mat, and the internet will try to convince you that you need a certain one, but Pro Source Fit, if you look that even up on Amazon, you can, like, I got a used one for a friend yesterday for $14. So that does not have to be a huge expense for you. There was a lot of questions, a lot of comments about self-talk. And I wondered if you would share that example with, remember when Micah came home and he had a bad day at school? Maybe
No.
so from a self-talk perspective and like helping your kids, you want to instill in them like some values. And so, you know, my son came home one day from school and he was 7 and he had felt dismissed by his teacher. Okay. So that's what we're dealing with, is dismissed by my teacher. And she came in and she said, okay, first of all, people make mistakes. That is a core value that all of my children are going to believe and that they can draw on when they're like in this spiral. So that becomes self-talk because it's a core value. You got to know your core values or you're not going to self-talk very well. So for him, one of them is people make mistakes. And then another value that we instill in our kids is that the world is not fair. Now, we don't shove that in their faces when, you know, they're fighting over the front seat, but it was unfair that he was unheard by his teacher and that she, you know, took another kid's side. That was unfair to him. We weren't going to throw a fit about it, but he did need to know that value system. And then the third thing, the third value that we instill in our kids is that mom and dad can handle this. And so that again is self-talk. Like when you're helping your kids, that's the self-talk that I'm training my kids with all the time. People make mistakes. The world isn't fair. Mom and dad can handle this.
Can help you handle this. You're not alone.
You're not,
I think is
yeah,
what she's trying to
yeah,
say.
yeah,
We will
yeah,
not let
sorry.
you, we will not throw you out to the wolves and make you handle this by yourself. We will come alongside of you. Not that we will do it for them, but we will come alongside of them and coach them so that they can get through it. Yeah, that's really good. I do now remember that situation.
A grounding mat is something that you've like plugged into like essentially the ground. So like the electrical current. So if somebody's laying on a grounding mat, you know, you've used the bottom part of your plug and it's like channeling the energy from the ground up. Okay. An acupressure mat has like you're kind of laying on like pins and needles. So it's pretty different. I have tried grounding mats with my clients over and over and over again, and I have not seen personally a big difference for them other than that they're like dreaming a little bit deeper. But from a breathing, a nervous system perspective, that do the acupressure mat before you would
Would
do.
one or both of you share, which you haven't yet, some oils for any of this? I'm a little surprised.
Well, we talked about
Supplements. Yeah, but how about, if you
talked
can, there's even things for kids. So if you could share a
about
little bit about the oils.
Sandy, we talked about Serenity, Balance, Arise, Adaptive, and Shinrin-yoku. So
Okay.
those you mentioned kind of throughout.
How
But
about more? Like, what if somebody has tonight, they have 8 oils at home? Do you tell them to muscle test? Just have them smell? What could you guide somebody, especially those that are brand new or don't even have oils in their home yet? Where would they begin?
Okay. Well, personally, what has helped me and my clients the most is to start collecting the essential oils from the emotional symphony of the cells, which I don't have that off the top of my head. I could get that to you another time. But that's incredible. And it has been huge for my teenage daughter who's heading into that, you know, this really special time where we become women. And so you actually lay down on your stomach and you apply the essential oils one by one. There's 10 oils in the protocol. You don't need to buy all 10 tonight, but you can start. And 3 of them are still going to help you. And so you lay on your stomach and then you apply them to the spine because we live our life through our spine. And so it's going to give yourself the cellular support that you need to, and some of that communication with the brain. So if I were to like only get a few, I would start with like adaptive and Shinrin-yoku and frankincense, and I use those on the spine. Copaiba is another really, really good one. And then, sorry, one thing that we've done for our kids over and over and over again, and actually 5 years ago is when I was introduced to essential oils. And the first change that I found is putting balance on my son's feet. I have one son, we have 4 kids, but one of them is neurodivergent. And we started using balance on his feet, and I could not even believe how he would wake up the next morning and be like way more chill and just like able to handle the input that was in our home. I was shocked. So love that. If you want to do, like, let's say you want to support your kiddos, there's a kids collection and it's got 7 oils in it. And you could lay your child on their stomach with their shirt off. And so the spine is up, and you literally apply one oil at a time. And like if this is their back, you just like take the roller and you go down the back like that, and you do one at a time with each one before they go to bed or before school. And oh my goodness, if you can do that for 30 days in a row, you're gonna see changes in your kids. Like, it's remarkable.
And somebody gave a list of some of the oils that Tricia had forgotten what they were at that exact moment. So you might want to check on the
Emolbic,
yeah,
City of the Cells,
yeah.
frankincense, neroli, rose. Thank you, Julie. Rose, jasmine, spikenard, Melissa, align, Douglas fir, spearmint. Yeah.
So there you go. It's in there. I wanted to really quick. So our boundaries seminar, we don't have an exact date of when it's going to start, but somebody commented on that they're interested in that. So follow us on Essential Thrive Tribe, and we will advertise that when it comes up sometime in the next 6 months. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen. And then the other thing somebody asked is, do we have any suggestions for obsessive compulsive behavior? OCD is a, it can be a minimal thing, and it can be a really, really big controlling thing. I mean, there's even medication you can take for it. But if you or someone is just has some OCD habits, there are ways to challenge yourself, so you don't have to have a freak out every time you have a little bit of an OCD episode. So that's all I'm going to say about that here, because OCD is its own seminar. I would probably recommend, though, that you Google, OCD and read about it, and then you can kind of come up with some of your own ways to help work through. Like OCD, a big example is hand washing. You hand wash, 15 times and you still don't think your hands are clean. So you discipline yourself. You allow yourself to hand wash, twice an hour or whatever, something like that. And then you just let yourself feel the discomfort of not doing it again. So there's just things like that help you with OCD, but OCD is a really big topic. So that's all I can do here.
I would highly, highly recommend the Neurological Symphony of the Cells for OCD, though, as well. There definitely are. We have so much at our fingertips that we can use, mental, emotionally, physically.
Yep.
Well, we want to thank you so much. And folks, please unmute and show your appreciation for the ladies for tonight.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love that your
Thank you
sons
so
came
much.
on. Y'all were great.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Have a great evening, everyone. We'll see you all next week.
Thank
Thanks
you,
again.
Sandy. Sandy.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Thank you.